Good afternoon, good evening. If you're watching this back later on in the week, good morning, Daniel. Thank you for jumping on with us this morning, buddy.
Good, bud.
How are we doing, mate? How are we doing?
Yeah, good, mate. All good.
Yeah,
Yeah. Just cracking on with some editing, and yeah, that's about it. Pretty much, just pretty much the same. Otherwise,
that's
but
it, isn't it? Because of course we've got the I think it's official now that the lockdown's obviously been knocked back a little bit. It's another month, isn't it?
yes, I
To the
did
best of
remember
my
hearing about
understanding,
that.
yeah,
Yeah, so that's
yeah,
that's obviously pretty interesting. But yeah, like I said, with me and you've just been having a crack off air there. I know, like you've had your vaccine now, and mine's on Saturday, so looking
yeah.
forward to that. So, well, not looking forward. That's a very long word, but I'll be glad to get that done. So
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
feel a bit more comfortable moving around, and as you say it yourself, like. It's just kind of the ease knowing that you're probably unlikely to give it to someone. So I think that's probably the most important thing.
Of course, yeah, a little bit of peace of mind, because I'm sure for a lot of people, one of the biggest things that they felt through all of this, might be the worry about passing it on to somebody else.
Definitely.
People who, I know there was a point early during lockdown, or before lockdown, sorry, while I was still working in the gym, I took it upon myself to say, right, I'm not going to go and see my family. I know there's no lockdown in place, there's no rules, there was no guidelines at the time, but it was just total preservation, where it is just peace of mind, like I sort of mentioned like a second ago to yourself. I'm sure that a lot of the younger generation are more worried about passing it on to somebody that they do love and care about than getting it themselves,
Of
So,
course,
so
yeah.
yeah, we still sort of plodding on in the right direction. And of course, we've got the sunshine now, which a handful of months ago we didn't have,
I know.
which, we've said before, but it makes a world of difference. Getting up, starting your day right, helps you, obviously, motivation, getting a little bit of exercise in there
Yeah,
as well.
vitamin D, isn't it, as well? Just getting out there, and you feel better for being in the sun. If you have a nice little walk, it like gives you
Absolutely.
energy. You feel good. Your body responds to it. It's like
It is. It's a funny one, isn't it? How we can think to ourselves, "Oh, I haven't got the energy for a walk, or I haven't got the energy to go and do this," and you actually come back from it with more energy than you
oh,
when you
definitely,
left.
mate. Yeah,
Because it does. It gets those hormones going. You got that sense of purpose, like you say, buddy. A bit of vitamin D, which I'm sure we could all do with after the last year. So yeah, hopefully we're all feeling good. We're chasing fitness goals. We've got a clear idea of what those goals are, especially as things are opening up again. Like we say, I know lockdown's been pushed back a little bit further, but at the same time, we can use gyms now, we can exercise together outside, all of that sort of thing. We've got community centres, there's fitness classes springing up again, so we've got a lot more opportunity. But you might be still in the position where you're more comfortable just still training at home, doing your own thing. I've mentioned myself. I know people myself who have wrapped the gym in and have got no intention of going back anytime soon. Either because they can do the stuff that they like in the house, or they've found other sort of activities that they enjoy, be it even just walking, rambling, stuff like that. Especially as the weather is a little bit nicer and you've not got to worry about your waterproofs every time you go out and kicking off like 2 inches of mud off your shoes every time you get home and stuff like that, it just makes it a little bit more enjoyable. And in my opinion, anyway, I know
yeah,
some people like the rain, some people like getting out and about and that as well, but I just feel like it just helps keep you focused a little bit more, doesn't it? And just gives you that, like you say, buddy, that little bit extra motivation.
not wrong, but
So what we're going to be looking at this morning, we're actually going to be touching on moving on and looking at some bodyweight exercises that we can do. If you've done any of the videos on the Media Savvy channel through lockdown, you'll see that a lot of those fitness classes, those circuits that we've done have been bodyweight, because of course you don't need any extra kit to do it. You've not got to worry about going out and getting yourself a kettlebell and a load of dumbbells and just a load of little bits that's either gonna, right, it's gonna cost. Of course, we've got the cost of this kit to think about, maintenance, and of course storing it as well. If you are still in a situation where you are more comfortable at home, especially when it comes to doing your exercise and your fitness and stuff like that, you've got to think about where you're going to store all of that sort of stuff. Last week we talked about some of the kit we can use in medicine balls and, like I say, kettlebells. We looked at trampolines and stuff like that, which is really, really handy to have when you've got them. But of course, it's not feasible or sort of realistic for everybody to have one,
yeah,
you know. And then of course, like I say, it's where do you put it as well? You know, you maybe's got like a space in the house, kind of like I've got, I guess, that's sort of multi-purpose. You know, like I say, we've got all sort of the music kit in here, and it's sort of doubled up as like an office as well. I've got my resistance bands, which I've shown you guys before. I haven't got space for a load of kettlebells and dumbbells and all of that sort of thing as well. You know, so it is just a case of what space you've got, and that is where that bodyweight exercise can come in really, really handy at just opening up just different alternatives, you know, just keep things fresh for yourself. You know, if you've done press ups, you've done squats, you've done burpees, and now you're bored to death of them and you're thinking, right, now where do I go? You know, that is something that you might get a little bit of an idea of this morning. If we can just go to the first slide, buddy, just to recap from last week, like I sort of touched on a second ago, we did look at the fitness equipment, mainly that we could use in a circuit training session, because of course that is what we're building towards at the end of today's session over the course of the next week. You guys are actually going to be designing your own circuit cards, which, you know, again, we covered last week. We're going to be looking at getting on there, you know, the name of the exercise that they're expected to be doing in that particular location or with that bit of kit, the muscles that they're going to be using, you know, so they know where they're going to feel it. Same again, I've mentioned it before, like if you're doing an exercise and you know, for example, you should be feeling your shoulders and your triceps, and you're feeling it in your lower back more than anything, that's maybe a little bit of an indicator to think about, of course, your technique and the way that you're lifting and stuff like that as well. Just make sure you've got the right muscles firing, I guess, is the right way to put it. I think it's easy to fall into this mindset of I need to move the weight from point A to point B, when really it's a case of engaging these muscles as much as possible from point A to point B.
Yeah.
You know, so if you are, you know, using an overhead press as an example, if you're standing and doing like an overhead press, you know, you want to be feeling it on your shoulders. If you're feeling it on your lower back, it's probably telling you that you maybe leaning back too much.
Yeah.
You know, if you've ever seen it, if you think about it from a side point of view, you could be leaning back too
totally,
much.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that happens all the time with overhead press.
Yeah, maybe to get more sort of weight under the bar to push upwards, you know. And I've even seen people do it as a way of like trying to just get their head and their face out the way before they start to push, so they don't catch it with the bar on the way past.
You get this all the time, right? Where like it's like people start to incorporate other muscles to try and do the exercise because, you know, that maybe it's too heavy for them. And like obviously the classic one is the cheat curls with bicep curls, right? Where like you get people swinging the hips to pull the bar up, and it's like they'll hoist their weight to like get the barbell or the dumbbells up to here. And it's you know, that there's a lot of stuff like that you know, you're using other muscles. It's not a bicep curl at that point anymore, right? It's becomes something else. So
it's probably using that sort of technique. It's closer to a kettlebell swing, isn't it? You'll boost the bar and get it moving with your hips, and then just sort of like just lock the bar in at the top. Like, yeah, granted, you can then take the weight on the way down, sort of like we talked about before with negative reps and stuff like that. You can still do that, but of course, that is where you're thinking about, is being at a heavier weight sort of better for my goals? Is it going to get me where I actually want to be? And negative reps, something that I should be thinking about using in my training at the minute, you know. And that's the sort of thing that if we do never get around to cover it in a session, you can just drop me an email and say, look, Rob, I'm thinking about this. Do you think this would be useful for me? Because more often than not, we mentioned before, you know, negative reps, if you're not just trying for strength training, negative reps, you're probably better off just dropping the weight a little bit and just being able to control the weight through the whole range, rather than being too heavy and only actually working the muscles through one half of the range, because like you mentioned a second ago, but you're using other muscles to get the weight up, and then your biceps are actually working on the way down. So yeah, I feel that's really handy to have on the cards, of course, if we know where we should be feeling it, what muscles should be engaged, because like I say, it just gives us an idea if we're feeling it in the right place or not. Of course, we can put on what equipment's been used as well, you know, so we could put on there, okay, you're going to be using, I don't know, a kettlebell or a barbell for this. So if they get to that station and that kit's not there, they know what they're looking for. You know, I mean, it should be there if the person that used it beforehand's left it before, but, you know, the amount of times I've seen a couple of dumbbells get put down, and because they just roll off, you know. So yeah, you might get to the next station and you're like, right, okay, what's this? If the exercise just says bicep curl and there's no kit there, well, you're thinking about how to do a bicep curl with no kit. And yeah, you know, unless it says on the piece of paper, okay, you should a barbell, you should have dumbbells, whatever it is, resistance bands, you know what you're looking for, you can jump straight in, and ultimately you're going to spend more of that time that you should be working, you're going to spend more of it working rather than standing scratching your head thinking, what am I supposed to be doing, you know, and trying to get the instructor's attention. Of course, maybe it's a picture of the exercise. Doesn't matter whether it's just stickmen, you know, it can be really, really helpful. Just to give people an idea. Again, military press. If you come up to a card that says military press and you haven't come across it before, where do you even start? What are you going to do? So that kind of puts responsibility on the person. Always have an eye on the person in front of them, really.
Yeah.
You know, to see what the person that is at that next station is doing, so that they know what they're doing when they get there. And if you're looking at that person, you're not focusing 100% on what you're doing right now. So again, you wouldn't have thought a couple of stickmen could be so helpful in just getting the most out of not that circuit when you get there, but also the circuit beforehand, because you can focus on that and not worrying about what am I doing next. You know, there's going to be a good clear description of what it is that you should be doing. Like I say, a brief description of how to carry out each exercise, health and safety considerations to think about as well. You know, you might put on the bottom, if it's a skipping exercise, just thinking about watching your space, checking that you've got the sort of the clearance around you, that sort of thing. Stuff like, I mean, if you've ever seen people doing, like, you know, where they've got like a big tractor tire and you're doing tire flips and that sort of thing, you know, of course you need to make sure that you've got the space clear for that. If you've got people doing shuttle runs, you know, there's no way for a dumbbell to roll into that lane, you know, a skipping rope to maybe get left out in the wrong place as well. So we're always thinking about those health and safety things. And then, you know, a nice little touch that you could put on that, you know, it's almost like the icing on the cake, really. It's how to make the circuit or that exercise a little bit harder if you're finding it too easy. And how to make it easier if you're finding it too hard. And when it comes to finding it too hard, that's just not, oh, I'm getting out of breath, I'm getting tired. That might just be, oh, my knee doesn't like that, you know, my back doesn't like that. Yeah, I've had a lot of people that have got to a burpees station, and, you know, through a weak of lower back, a weak of core, whatever it is, whenever they're jumping out into that plank position, their lower back was just killing because their core couldn't take that impact and couldn't take that sort of, they couldn't take that weight and that strain. So, thinking about saying, if you are having that sort of person, just stay in that plank position, maybe, you know, depending on what the individual is and what the problem is. But yeah, just having a brief idea how you're going to make an exercise harder or easier, depending on the people that are turning up. And of course, as you sort of run your sessions and you get used to your regulars and your members and stuff like that, you can actually get to the point where you're going to have a rough idea who's turning up, and you can actually plan the session with them in mind as well. But yeah, definitely have an idea how to make things a little bit harder, a little bit easier. So when you're actually delivering the session, if someone says, look, I'm finding this a little bit easier, a little bit hard, you're not then stood there on the spot thinking, right, okay, what's this exercise? How can I make it harder, easier, but still give people the same sort of benefit and still be working those same components of fitness as well? So that is something I always got a lot of benefit out of thinking about beforehand rather than in the moment. And, you know, you might have, if you wait until the day and you've got 10 people in your class, you might have 3 people get to a station where they have this same problem at the same time. You know, so of course you don't really want to be trying to deal with 3 people at the same time while it's eating into everybody's 60-second work period, you know, or 45-second work period, or however long it would be. So yeah, the more information we can have on these cards, the more streamlined your circuit is going to be, not just from like a member's point of view, from a customer's point of view and somebody who's participating, but from the instructor's point of view as well. You know, a little bit of peace of mind, you know, that things are going to be ticking over. Things are almost going to run themselves. You know, that was the way that I always like to get things too. So I know that I can go around and engage with the members a little bit more, you know, push people a little bit harder, try and get an idea for who is slacking a little bit, you know, who could be working harder, who needs that little bit of pushing, who needs their weights up and that sort of thing as well, you know, just like I say, a little bit of peace of mind. And, you know, that the session's almost going to run itself at this point, you know, which is why those circuit cards can be so helpful. Okay, buddy. So if you don't mind just blasting onto that next slide. Like I say, we're going to talk about bodyweight exercises and how we can fit them into your circuit training as well. You know, so we're talking, would you do 5 exercises in a row that use kit and then 5 bodyweight exercises? Yeah, you could. You could also do alternating. You could do one with kit, one without, one with kit, one without. That was the way, again, I used to like doing it that way quite a lot. I used to like alternating my circuits from like upper body to lower body, you know, so you've got the blood sort of doing full circuits, your heart rate staying high. So your heart rate's staying high because you're not resting so much. But after each upper body set, you've got your next one's going to be lower body. So your upper body's resting even through your next work and set as
Good
well.
idea, man.
So that might help you actually be a little bit more fresh when you get to your next upper body session, you know. So we might not be working on endurance quite so much because they have had a little bit more recovery, but we can manage a little bit more weight. We can make sure that we've got good form, we've got good technique as well. So yeah, that was the way that I used to like doing it. But again, you know, there's not a right and a wrong way to do a circuit, which is part of the benefit that we've really talked about last week. As long as you've got a good idea what benefit that you want to give to your members, you can make it a circuit that benefits endurance, strength, you know, anything like that, you know, mobility, any of those components of fitness that we discussed the other week. You can design a circuit pretty much to improve and sort of work and develop on those components as well. So,
Yeah.
like I say, there is no right and wrong way to do it as long as you've got a clear idea in your mind of why you've set things up the way that you have, and which is of course something that we'll get to a little bit later on. Thinking about the benefit that you want your members to get out of the circuit as well. So again, when it comes to our circuit training cards, we're going to have our ones for our body weight exercises as well. You might think it's going to be a little bit easier for someone to come along and know what they're doing if it's just a body weight exercise, but you would be surprised. You really would, you know. It's just a case of, if you think about a bicep curl, yeah, you're using a bit of kit, but the movement itself is really quite simple.
Yeah.
You know, you're bending at the elbow, you're bending a joint that is moving the way it's meant to be moved. If you then think about all the different sections of a burpee, you know, where you might jump you jump your feet out, you jump your feet back in, you stand yourself up, you jump in the air, you come back down. Do you know what I mean? Like it can be one of them where there's a lot of moving parts as well. So we're going to do exactly the same with our body weight exercises as we would with our weighted and with our resistance exercises as well. Of course, we don't need to worry about putting on what kit we're going to be using, but we're still going to use the same sort of approach. You know, name of the exercise, what muscles it uses, maybe a picture to help describe how to move through it, and of course all the rest that we were just talking about as well. So when it comes to body weight exercises, if we can go next slide, please, buddy. One of the most important benefits of body weight, like I say, is its ability to improve muscular strength and your CV endurance, all at the same time. Like I say, depending on how you set it up, frequently changing your position keeps the heart rate elevated, while the body weight and gravity work to strengthen muscles. You know, again, depending on what it is that you're doing, chances are anything that you do in a circuit is going to be more resistance based than running on a treadmill. You know, unless you know, you're running on the sport or you're doing circuit like shuttle runs and stuff like that, which again, they have their place when they're used right. But a lot of the other exercises that you're going to do, even the body weight ones, work towards giving you the benefits of resistance training, like we talked about earlier on in the course. You know, we're talking about sort of not just your CV endurance and how effective your cardiovascular system is, but we're talking about like bone density as well, you know, strengthening your bones, stave off osteoporosis and onset osteoporosis, stuff like that. You don't need to be doing 3 sets of 10. You don't need to be going really heavy. You don't need to be going and sitting on the big machines that maybe are a little bit overwhelming and a little bit daunting to you. To get that effect, all you really need to be doing necessarily is getting these exercises in there somewhere, and that's the beauty of it. You can do it from the comfort of your own home. You know, maybe if you are a little bit self-conscious, maybe if you are worried about going to a gym and you feel like a little bit of a newbie and you're worried everybody's going to be sort of judging you and looking at you and stuff like that, or maybe, you know, you just don't feel confident enough with where we are with COVID and stuff like that, and maybe, like I say, you've just decided that you're going to exercise from home for now. You know, there is a lot of stuff that we can do. There's a lot of stuff that we can't do as well, you know, which, depending on your goals, is something to think about and reflect on. You know, you would have a hard time doing any real sort of dedicated strength training without the ability to go sort of really heavy for fewer reps as well. But at the same time, you know, we've mentioned before as well, buddy, when a lot of people say to me, oh, I want to get stronger, it's not strength training that they need to be
No.
doing. They want to get stronger, but their main goal is like, I'd like to lose a little bit of body fat, really, or
Yeah.
I'd like to move a little bit better, or I'd like running up the stairs to be like a little bit less challenging to us.
That's
They
it.
don't necessarily mean they want the big weight belt on, and they want the old liquid chalk on their hands, doing like
Yeah.
lifting the Atlas balls and
Oh wow. You just
pulling
gave
tractors and stuff like that.
mate. You just gave me unlocked a memory that I didn't even realize I had. Because I remember obviously I said that before. My mate used to bring in chalk. He used to get it from the climbing center, and we used to
Mhm.
use chalk in the gym. And I don't know why they didn't ban us from using it because it was just such a nuisance, and it would get on the weights and everything, and it was just like a mess really, and it would get on the floor. So yeah, we shouldn't have never ever used it, but after that, he got liquid chalk and he used to squirt it on your
Yeah.
hands and then you rub it and it would get like extra chalky. So I literally forgot about the existence of liquid chalk until you mentioned it there. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I only remember it so well because it has been the bane of my life working in gyms. Actually, now you mention it, yeah, yeah, it does get everywhere. But yeah. Do you know what? Like, again, it has its place. I guess really the takeaway is that this idea of strength training, and like I say, we've mentioned it before, but this idea of strength training, when people say that they want to, when Joe Public comes up to you and says that they want to get stronger, it's usually to be able to carry a couple of extra shopping bags, like
yeah.
extra carrier bags to the car and stuff like that. It's not to be pushing the 4x4 out the mud and stuff like that. It's
Atlas stones.
exactly, buddy. Or like pulling a jumbo jet, like along a rope and stuff like that. Some of the stuff that those guys do is mad.
Yeah,
But yeah, the way that we think about strength training, and when 99% of people use the word strength, there's just a massive disconnect between the two. So yeah, I mean, I mentioned before, that was one of my goals when I started training, was to get stronger.
hmm
But again, if I'd focused, and again, obviously understanding a lot more now, if I'd have focused my training more on hypertrophy, which was actually what I wanted, but I didn't even realize that word existed at the time. I didn't even realize that this concept of just developing a muscle size was different to developing a muscle strength.
yeah,
So again, just getting this idea of what people actually mean when it comes to strength training. Circuit training and the sort of stuff that you can do is really suitable for them. It's just a case of, if you've got someone who's like 20 stone of pure muscle that is training for a powerlifting or like an Olympia or something like that, yeah, we do need to think about a different type of training, and circuits might not be the best for them. But even then, you'll know yourself, buddy. Even the Mr. Olympia, of course, a lot of the big like a lot of the like boxers and people that are in really good nick also need to work on conditioning. They
course.
will do
Yeah,
circuit based stuff just to work on lower rest, and just being challenged on that lower rest as well, and being almost burned out. So
yeah,
yeah,
totally.
circuit training could benefit 99.9% of people, and realizing that, is of course a way to open that possibility up to a lot of other people as well, because there will be people out there thinking that circuit training isn't for me. At one point, I'd have said the same for myself. I'd have been in the mindset of, because it'd be very easy to get into, I can't afford to burn that many calories because I'm trying to put weight on.
Yeah,
Whereas that's not necessarily the case. There's a lot of research that says that you'll actually develop muscle better and faster, and it'll be a better quality when you're doing cardiovascular training on top of that as well. The payoff is just eat more and
it,
get those extra calories so you can do that fitness for your heart and your lungs as well.
it makes you more hungry as well. So like, if that is your goal, when you're burning all
Definitely.
those calories, you're hungry and you want to eat more. So if you want to gain more weight, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Obviously, if you don't want to, then you just don't have to eat then, and you are burning the calories. So then you're gonna obviously lose weight or burn fat. But if it is weight that you want to gain, and then you do some cardio after you've done it, you'll be more hungry than you would have been anyway. So it's actually going to be easier to get the calories in. So
Well, exactly, buddy. Exactly, and it's one of them where it's like, okay, you've got the choice of giving your body exercise that's going to benefit it, and more food that's going to bring nutrition, and of course, obviously, good sources of like minerals and vitamins and stuff like that. Fiber, of course, coming from our food. Maybe it's extra protein,
yeah,
or you can eat less and exercise less.
yeah. There's a thing like with certain like lifters and stuff who just don't want to do cardio because they think like, oh, I can't afford to like have any calories like burned and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
it's like
yeah,
they won't ever do any cardio, and it's like fair enough if that doesn't meet your goals 100%. But it's like it's you know, it's like it kind of defeats the object of like doing something that's related to health and fitness, because what you're doing, even though you're exercising every day, it's not necessarily going to be that healthy if you've got
yeah,
no cardio at all. So
yeah.
it's like,
Yeah, if your exercise leaves no room and has no place for working the muscles that actually pump blood around your body and keep you alive, you know, are you, like you say, buddy, are you really exercising at all? You
yeah,
know, like, are you getting, like, you're missing out on one of the main benefits of training, and it is like we train for reasons far beyond just, you know, to work the muscles that look good in the mirror, or we should be, you know.
yeah,
Look, like I said, like you say, buddy, looking after our CV system, and like I say, if all that you need to do to be able to fit that into your training is just eat a little bit extra, get some extra calories in, you're going to feel so much better for it.
of course,
You
man.
really will. You really will. And I can actually vouch for, you know, the muscle quality of guys that don't do any cardio and the guys that do. I was like, if Mr. Olympia, a week before he's getting up on stage to show everybody that his muscles are as big as possible, if he can find a way to get calorie burning cardio into his workout, anybody can, you
Of
know,
course.
is the way that I look at it as well. So yeah, there is space for all of us to get some kind of CV training in there as well. And like I say, circuit training is really good for that, because we can keep the exercises mixed up, we can keep them varied, we can keep it interesting. I think a lot of what the problem is that they don't want to do, or a lot of people don't like the idea of just walking for half an hour or running for half an hour, however long it might be, where, yeah, you can get a lot of the same fat burning effect, while, like I say, doing some resistance training. It's just how you've got it structured, and just training smart, you know, work smart as well as hard, so they say.
Exactly.
So let's have a little bit of a look at some of the bodyweight exercises we can do. Just before we dive in, buddy, do you have a personal favorite?
Bodyweight
Just,
exercise.
yeah, just out of curiosity.
Okay, so like like cardio, or like something that's going to be so any kind of cardio, like running and jogging, with that, is that bodyweight exercise? Would you include that, or
Anything that doesn't involve any kit. For the argument, for the sake of today's argument, we'll say anything that you could use in a circuit. So
okay,
something
cool.
that you might do for 60 seconds, or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's 100%. Well, yeah, no. Okay, so I would say probably my favorite bodyweight exercise that I do is is pull-ups. Obviously, you need a bar,
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah.
so that is a thing. But if you've got a bar, I mean, I used to do them when I was younger in like the cage near where I lived in the thing. You could use any kind of metal bar, and you're good to go, really. But I think pull-ups, because I think in terms of muscle building, pull-ups are one of the best bodyweight exercises out there. You can obviously switch your grip. You can do wide grip. There's
Mm-hmm.
just a multitude of variations that you can do as well, and it's always going to give you a pretty good workout. Other than
Yeah.
that, I know we said for because it's just been on my mind since we started talking about this. I don't know how relevant it would be. You could probably replicate it, but I was thinking about hill sprints just before, for like
Oh
one of
yeah.
them, because I remember I used to do them, and like literally we're talking about cardio. There's nothing that'll
Yeah.
knock you more than that, because that's like the altitude versus you going full pelt. It annihilates you. So
Yeah, yeah. Oh, definitely, mate. Definitely. I used to use a treadmill and just set it on like the highest
there
incline,
you go. Yeah.
and then just sort of build that in as part of the circuit or as part of the boot camp and stuff like that. But yeah, that really will get you, like, that'll you'll know about that one, because there's running and then there's running uphill, and yeah, there's a big difference. There is a big difference. You'll
Legs
feel it
totally
when you
seize
hit your
up.
calves. Yeah,
You
yeah,
feel
they
like
do,
you
definitely.
just completely seized up, like
Yeah.
totally.
It's an annual event, and I don't know where they hold it, but it's called like a hill sprint. It's a hill
Wow.
run, and like they literally just start at the bottom of this hill and they just race up. Like it's pretty much vertical, and like it's one of them that you're looking and you'd be thinking, oh, that wouldn't be so bad. That wouldn't be so bad. But I tell you what, if you've ever tried it, you see people that are in like peak physical condition,
Yeah.
getting like halfway, 3/4 of the way, just giving up. Like, have you ever seen that? Have you seen that event? Totally unrelated. But have you seen where they do like the running of the cheese, where they roll like cheese down the hill and everybody just chases it?
Sounds familiar, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why they do it, but it's essentially the same steepness of hill, but they're running up it instead of down it, man. And
Wow.
it looks pretty brutal. It really does look brutal.
I
But
couldn't imagine running down a hill. Like I used to when I did hill sprints. Obviously, to run back up the hill, I'd like kind of like jog down it, sort of. But like I feel like you put so much pressure on like
on your knees.
on your knees
Yeah.
because you're like trying to like kind of compensate for the like the going down. So it's definitely not the best like when you're running down a hill.
Yeah, definitely. Well, when they do that, like you see people clean out. I think they have like ambulances on standby and stuff like that for this running of the cheese every year because people do stack it. After today's session, if you've never heard of it, there you go. Do yourself a favor and Google the running of the cheese, like because it's well worth the watch for sure.
Slightly off topic, but my mate was he posted like somewhere on Instagram and it was like basically you know when you go rock climbing and you got those like pegs that you put into the like hole and then you take them out. He was doing that, man, and that like I couldn't even do one of them. That looks like pretty tough, like to be fair. It's like
it's brutal going.
you're
Yeah,
hanging basically by that peg and you've just got to like pull yourself up. So I think that's something else that like that's a whole level of core strength.
oh, definitely, buddy, and grip strength
Oh
as
yeah,
well.
exactly.
Yeah. But like coming back to what you mentioned a second ago, buddy, of course, with like your pull-ups and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Really good for your grip strength as well. You know, especially when it gets used to like bearing your own weight. Disclaimer: I would say definitely do your research into whatever bar you're going to put up. If you're going to put one up, because you see plenty of videos of them not being installed properly as well. But yeah, that's a really good shout, buddy. That's one of the more effective ways to do body weight or sort of training your back and those muscles that we use for pulling at home. You know, with probably the least kit sort of possible, really. But yeah, that's a really good shout, buddy. You know, because like you say, not only is there a lot of different varieties you can do, a lot of different variations, but because you work in a big muscle group, obviously you're stimulating a lot of muscle, you're burning a lot of calories in one go, and you're going to get a lot of benefit from doing those what we would call a compound exercise, using a lot of muscle at once. I quite like a pull up myself. I would say that probably one of my favorite bodyweight exercises, just in terms of like the idea behind it and the way people react to doing it the first time. It's got to be a good old simple plank. You know,
it's a classic,
just this idea of like, okay, right, you've done all those exercises where you've been running and jumping and lifting and all of that and throwing things, and they're tiring. Wait till you get a load of this exercise where you don't have to move anywhere. Do you know what I mean?
No, you're right, mate. Yeah.
You're still gonna feel it. You see people's face like, well, all I've got to do is get on my toes, get on my elbows, and just keep that flat body position. And then, like after 20 seconds, they're going, "Has that been a minute yet? Please tell me that's been a minute." You know, if you think a minute goes over fast, try a plank and set your stopwatch away. Definitely.
I think just any kind of exercise where you're kind of holding the muscle for a certain amount of time like that. Like obviously I know I've spoken about Pilates with you before, and there's one called the earthquake where like you put your arms out like that and then you kick your feet up as well and you just kind of have your bum and you kind of so you're balancing like your body's basically like that. And it's called the earthquake for a reason because your body starts to go like that.
Oh, okay, I like
trying
that.
To stabilize.
That's
a fantastic finisher.
Yes, really good. It'd be really good for your core as well. I imagine that.
Yeah, totally. And you can mix it up as well because you can go one. Because obviously, if you got your hands straight, it's not as bad. But if you put one arm up, you start to shake. You put both arms up, it gets even more intense because you're just trying to hold your body up basically, and you're using all of those muscles to kind of stabilize. So it's that's one of my favorite like Pilates kind of moves, I guess.
Yeah, I like that one. Sometimes a position like you say where you hold a position with tension on your muscle is so much harder than working through reps.
Totally,
it really can be, because like I say, when you're not I always think about it, say like when you're moving and doing like an exercise like a deadlift, the tension on your muscles comes from moving, doesn't it? You know, when you're doing a hold and when you're doing a plank, the tension on your muscles comes from not moving. Which you don't get very much in sort of like your stereotypical sort of exercise. And if you think as well, like when same again, just using a bicep curl, if you get to the top of your range there's no tension on your bicep. It doesn't matter how long it's for, half a second, however long you stay there, there's no tension on your bicep because you're at the top of your range. Again, when you get to the bottom of your range, if you come all the way down, there's no tension on the bicep. So throughout a 60-second set, you might only spend 40, 50 seconds with that muscle under tension, whereas when you're doing a hold and that tension's on for the whole set. So same again, just another reason why I love me holding exercises, like a wall sit. If you've ever done a wall sit, like get your bum and your shoulders against the wall.
Yeah.
Slide down so there's a 90-degree bend at your knees. So like your feet are right under your knees, and then you've just got like a 90 degrees, like you're sitting on an invisible step and just lean against the wall. And again, I've seen people say like, what, all I've got to do is just come down and hold that there, and I've got the wall to help us. It's like, yeah, right. Knock yourself out. We'll do 2 minutes then if you want instead of 1. But get your first minute done first, and then we'll see how you're feeling afterwards. But yeah,
that's it. Like
anything like that, you're definitely gonna fail there. That's for sure, buddy.
it's horrible, man. That's
yeah.
It's one of the things I hate about yoga, where it's like you just like your whole body's like trying to like stay on one foot or something, and you're like doing the shakes. It's like it's tough, man. It's harder than people think, and that's the thing I love as well, because I think regardless whatever you're great at, if you're great at bodybuilding, then you might struggle with yoga or certain cardio. If you're great at yoga, you might study with bodybuilding. So it's like all of these different kind of sports or exercises. It's like, just because you're good at one, some of the skills may transfer, but obviously it doesn't matter how fit you are. It's totally different style of like fitness, so it might be really, really difficult. So yeah.
Absolutely, buddy. Yeah, really good shout. Like you say, it's not like not everybody's main style of fitness or main style of exercise is going to carry you across, but yeah, you will have some, like you say, when we talk about components of fitness, some of them sort of transfer across, and some of them not so much. Like I say, you can have circuits that are more designed just sort of moving well and getting, like you say, buddy, them stabilizing muscles working, because do you know what you can do if you could get on a resistance machine and like an overhead press machine and do muscles that are going to work your deltoids all day, and your deltoids will grow. But then you go to do something that works outside of that range that you're really strong through, and you're potentially going to hurt your shoulder. You're definitely not going to be as strong, which is where these functional movements come in, and where we want to be doing more than just working the main skeletal muscles, and the ones that we can flex and the ones that look good in the mirror and on the old selfies and stuff like that, but we want to make sure that we're working those stabilizing muscles as well, those little things that help your hip socket work right and help your shoulder work right and stuff like that, because like you say, it doesn't matter how big you are, sooner or later you'll stiffen up. A lot of the bigger guys actually don't have the flexibility and the mobility that that they could probably do with. I told you before, I'd seen this video about these guys just messing around in the locker room, where they'd put like I think they'd put just like a sock on this bodybuilder's back, because his lats were so big and his shoulders are not only that big but also so tight, just from not stretching through anything other than ranges where he could stimulate them. He's probably done a load of that, and then his shoulders have forgotten how to work through any different range. So he's gone to get this sock off his back, and he just can't reach it, and it is hilarious. And it's like, you know what? There is a trade-off, isn't there? You get to the point where you're going to take size at the expense of other things as well.
Oh, definitely.
Which is, where we all have to take our own, all have to make our own decision where we want to sit and where we're aiming for, really, I guess. Because as much as your initial goal might be put size on, lose weight, whatever it might be, sooner or later you're gonna be reflecting on those goals and changing them as well. So you've got to be open to these different styles of training as well. What if you get to the point where you've put the size on that you want, you've hit whatever weight it was that you wanted, now you do want to sort of lean up a little bit. Again, circuit training is going to come in and be really, really helpful there.
You need to be mindful of injuries as well with any sport. Like the more you kind of push it in a certain direction, the certain injuries that that just could be like that could end it for you. You might not be able to do it. I mean, I like, not to be a dead horse, but I know we talked about like Roddy Coleman, people like Dorian Yates, and it's like they get up to the like 60s, and it's like there's not a lot of longevity there. They've got like Like what we were saying about Ronnie Coleman, he's like his back's basically one disc now, so it's like so it's not necessarily with bodybuilding. I mean, obviously, a lot of people who do runners, if they run all the time, you can get plantar fasciitis, I think it's called, where like you know you can get damage on the bottom of your foot. There's a lot of kind of you need to be able to warm up properly, obviously, and you know, pay attention to potential injuries. That isn't to like discourage people from exercising, because obviously it is better to exercise, but it's just good to be mindful of potential injuries as well.
Yeah. We've got to do it safely, which is first and foremost, like you say, buddy. And of course, we have got to think about, you know, like you say, people like Ronnie Coleman, top of his game at one point. You know what I mean? Best in the world, Mr. Olympia winner several times over. He probably doesn't regret his choices and his decisions, and probably rightly so as well. Joe Public, your next door neighbour, do you know what I mean? The lads that you train with down the gym don't need to be training the same way that Mr. Olympia was training. You know, especially if you're not going on to compete and stuff like that, you know. If you are just training for longevity, don't train in the same way that's led to someone being wrecked by the time they're 50 years old. That's not longevity. Like,
I know.
If you want to train that way and pursue that, and maybe make a go doing that in a pro sense or whatever it might be, but just be aware of it, you know, because like I say, there's so many people that think, oh, I want to get stronger, I'm going to look at Ronnie Coleman and train the way that he does, when really you don't need to pair those two things up.
It gets unhealthy as well, because like look back to when I was like 19 or whatever. It's like I was so obsessed with it, and obviously I was at college, so I had all the time in the world. You know, you never have as much time as that, because it's like what you're in like 3 times a week, and then you've got the rest of the week just to like go to the gym whenever you want. It's you know, you pretty much go whenever, and like I was so obsessed with trying to gain weight. We spoke about like using like take a weight gainer, obviously, like just like a bunch of fat and protein, and then
the dirty bulk.
Yeah, and then like literally, I would like try my hardest. Obviously, we talked about, you know, how strength training, but like I was trying to like lift as heavy as I could every week. I was on a program where I was doing heavy squats 3 times a week, and literally because of that, I injured myself a couple of times, and to the point now where, you know, I still have injuries from when I was 19, that just there's so much scar tissue around my shoulder. I talked to you about my shoulder injury before, that like it's still there, and if I ever lift too heavy on my shoulder, it'll open up again, and I'll get injured pretty easily on my shoulder. So I have to be careful. I never lift too heavy on my shoulder. I have to do dumbbell press. I can't do bench press. And like, so yeah, it's definitely worth, you know, giving that advice, because like you know, it's not worth it. It's not worth injuring yourself and then, you know, not being able to kind of achieve those goals because of pushing yourself too far, maybe, you know.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. Like I started training very similar to yourself, buddy. You know, but like realizing that I was never going to go on and do like a bodybuilding competition. You know what I mean? There was one guy who asked us once, and again, it was before I was qualified and stuff like that. And I said, look, told him what I was doing in the gym. I was just having a big crack with him. I was on a 5-day split, so I was doing like a proper bodybuilder routine. You know, you're talking like a chest day, a back day, shoulders day, leg day, whatever it might be. And it, yeah, do you know what I mean? Like doing like 5 reps really heavy and stuff like that. You know, it was this, someone said to us, oh, do you think you'll ever compete? I was like, no. And it was only then like I started to think, well, why am I training like a competitor if I've got no sort of plans to be a competitor and going into one of these things, you know? You can take some of the principles, and you can certainly take the work ethic and stuff like that as well, but you don't need to just replicate what somebody else is doing, because why they're doing it is totally different to why you're doing it as well. Totally. And I think that's definitely worth pointing out, when, you know, there are so many different workouts out there that you can do just by Googling. How do you even know which one's right for you? How do you know where to start? You know? So yeah, we've got to think about your goals and stuff, like Men's Health magazine and stuff like that. Like, not to throw anybody under the bus, that's just an example that I can think of. But where they've got like a celebrity on the cover and it says, "Oh, find out how so and so trains."
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Like,
I used to read
come and try the Rock's training program.
Yeah, like,
and I'm like, why would you want to?
I know,
when you're not the Rock. You're not eating like the Rock. The rest of your day certainly doesn't look like Dwayne Johnson's, unless you're just disappearing off to Hollywood and filming for 9 hours a day, you know. So it's you don't necessarily need to just copy and paste what somebody else is doing. It's more about finding why they're doing what they're doing and extracting what actually applies to your own circumstances. That's the way that I've always thought about it.
Definitely.
For sure.
So true.
Yeah. Okay, guys. So just a couple of bodyweight exercises that we can do that we could use sort of just sort of plug straight into a circuit almost anywhere you'd want to in a circuit. We've got a squat, of course. You know, just your old the old booty grower.
The classic.
Everybody loves a squat. You know, where they say like sometimes life's like squatting. There's going to be a big weight trying to hold you down. You've just got to stand up again. You know that's one that's always stuck with us. I like that one. It's good. It's a good full body workout. You know, it looks like on paper it would just be for your legs, but you know, you've got your lower back is working to keep your back flat and to keep you stabilized. Your core is working to keep your body not only upright but tight and engaged as well. You know, it like I say, it is essentially a full body exercise, but really, really good for your glutes, your thigh muscles, and bringing that heart rate up as well. You know, I've used squats as a cardio exercise sometimes, just from like, they can be that tiring because you're using, if you think about how much muscle you use in one go, you know, and your body then has to get oxygen back round to those muscles, your heart rate's going to come up because it's got to work harder.
Totally.
You know,
it
so
gets your heart rate up quick.
Like I've mentioned before, I've done squats with guys that are big and strong that could manage an extra rep or two, but they're out of breath. And if their cardiovascular fitness was a little bit better, it's not their muscles that have given in. Their body just can't get the oxygen to where it needs to be, and they're just gassed. You know, so it's a big taxing exercise. I've used it as are you familiar with the idea of active rest? This idea of like, you might get a minute's rest at the end of a circuit, but 30 seconds of that you might be doing another exercise, you know, that's not quite as challenging. I've used squats in there before, you know, just to keep people moving, keep your legs from seizing up, just like I say, just keep your body working as well. And really, really good exercise. You're going to get a lot of those lower body muscles working. Same as with a lunge, you know, what we've got demonstrated on the right hand side. So with a lunge, you can either stand 2 feet together and step forward. Or you can stand 2 feet together and step backwards. Now I find that stepping forward is a little bit easier in terms of coordination because you can see where your foot is going. It's a little bit easier to plant it in the right place. I find that stepping backwards is a little bit kinder on the knees because you're not putting pressure on the foot that you've just planted and rocking forward into it. Your pressure's on the foot in the place where you've started, and of course you're just stepping back over. So again, you can have a little bit of a try. You might, thinking about your circuit cards, you might have a forward lunge on for people who maybe need it that way. And then for people who've got bad knees and stuff like that, you might have a reverse lunge as well to take some of the strain off the knees a little bit as well.
Yeah, I told you one of my least favorite ones in Insanity was always jog on the spot, into a lunge, over lunge, jog on the spot, lunge, switch legs, switch legs, jog on the spot.
And if you're doing jumping lunges in between as well, that's next level. Next level,
kills you. Man.
Definitely. It really does. And of course, we've talked a little bit about how that plyometric sort of training, that explosive training is different, but it's the same as anything. You could do walking lunges, you know what I mean? Yeah. I've done like walking lunges with a dumbbell in each hand. You go up one end of the gym and then come back on yourself. You're gonna be out of breath. Definitely. You know, it is enough. Again, we're working the same muscles as a squat. But with a lunge, you potentially got with a lunge, I find that your knees try and wobble about a little bit more because your balance and your center of gravity is sort of split, and your contact of like with the floor is split. You're working harder to balance a little bit more as well. You know, you bring your lunges in quite narrow. You know, and you're going to need to work to stabilize yourself a little bit more. If you bring your lunges out a little bit wider, you're going to hit the outside of the thigh a little bit more, bring those glutes in a little bit more as well again. So again, there's different ways we can modify them, but lunges and squats, really, really good exercises for getting the lower body working, getting those muscles engaged. And like I say, the heart rate effect as well, like the way that they hit the CV system, you're going to feel them even without any kit. You don't need to be doing a squat or a lunge with a barbell on your back, you know, to feel your heart rate start to come up a little bit. And if you've ever done them, you'll know by now what I'm talking about for definite. Okay, so a couple of legs exercises there. If we can go to the next slide, we've got a couple of core exercises. Now, when we talk about core training exercises, it's easy to fall into the habit, I think, of thinking about abs and training your abs, which is again, just to refresh on the anatomy side of things, your abs are just they're like the thin sheet of muscle that sits over your stomach, really. You know, they're actually two pieces of muscle, two strips that sit side by side, which is why sometimes you can have abs that look sort of offset from each other. If you've ever seen a six pack that's not totally symmetrical,
Gosh,
that's
yeah,
where that comes from. But when we talk about core training and getting good core exercise in, well, of course, we're talking about so much more than just working those abdominal muscles. We're thinking about our lower back, our pelvic floor, our diaphragm, all of that. We've got I think of core training as in almost like the tree trunk of your body, So yeah, that is going to involve your lower back. And again, coming back to planking that we mentioned earlier on, you can see how, so we can see how these two pictures that we've got, the guys on the left are just contracting those abdominal muscles to sit up, to do a sit up, and of course bring themselves a little bit up towards their knees, get their shoulders up off the floor. That doesn't really engage the lower back.
No.
Whereas if we look at planking on the right hand side, we've got the abs engaged to stop the hips from dipping, but we've also got the lower back engaged to help keep things a little bit higher as well. So we've got that effect on both sides, which is where sit-ups are a really good abs exercise, but planking, I would say, is a better core exercise because we hit so much more muscle. It's the case of saying like, it would be like saying, oh, I'm going to do some upper body exercises and like only working on your front delts. Really, that's the same idea as saying, oh, I'm going to do some core training and just doing sit-ups. All you're doing is picking one muscle in that vicinity and hammering that. Whereas, like I say, something like a plank is really good for like sort of full body training. And again, they've both got their places, depending on which muscles it is that you're trying to work and develop. They've both got their place in a circuit. And how they might be used. You could use them both in the same circuit, just not necessarily back to back. So where we're talking about your order of exercises, I would say that it wouldn't necessarily, in my idea, be a good idea to do sit-ups straight into planking, because by the time you get to planking, one of the muscles that you're using to protect your lower back is already tired. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
If that does that make sense?
No, totally, mate. I was gonna ask you about that actually. Like, so what's a good like starting exercise versus what's a good finishing exercise? I suppose it's like dependent on what you'd be working that day, right?
Yes, of course. Now, there's different ways, of course, to think about a circuit as well. There is a circuit that you are doing yourself, which you could start at exercise one and build up to exercise whatever. That's however you want to do it. The way that we're thinking about it, of course, as a circuit that we're running and instructing, each different person's going to get to each exercise on a different order, aren't they? So like, yeah, what might be the first exercise for one is going to be the last exercise for somebody else, which just puts extra importance, I would say, on thinking about which exercise leads directly into the next.
Got it.
Because that would be the way that I would think about it. It's okay, everybody's going to do all of these exercises in a different order. The way that I can best protect them is make sure that they're split up in a way that, coming back to using that as an example, they might do planking later on in their session, but it's not going to be straight after they've done a sit-up. Those might be exercises 1 and 2 for one person. There might be exercises 9 and 10 for somebody else by the time they get there. But it's a case of how they are in relation to each other, I would say, rather than how they are to a specific individual. If that makes sense, thinking about how they pair up together and making sure that, it doesn't matter whether they get there early in the circuit, late in the circuit, they're going to have enough in the tank to do each individual exercise safely, which means you have to reflect on what exercise comes before and after, really.
Got it. That makes sense.
That would be the way that I would think about it for sure. So, you might do, if you were going to put them closer together and really make it a lot more challenging for the core, you might do planking into sit-ups.
Right.
Because you've got one that's more full body, but then when you're on when you're doing the exercise that's going to put more strain on your lower back, a plank, your muscles are more fresh and your muscles are going to take that more. So then you can go on to a sit-up afterwards where you can just work your ab muscles without worrying about how engaged your lower back is as well.
Right, yeah. That makes sense.
It would be the same as if you were going to do a leg extension, like an isolation where you're just sort of extending at the knee and working your thigh muscle. You wouldn't, or I wouldn't give somebody that exercise and then say, right, barbell squats straight after, because then they're going into barbell squats where one of their main firing muscles is compromised, and then your form's going to start to going to start to suffer as well. That's where glutes might need to come in and work a little bit harder, or like I say, your form might go out the window a little bit as well. You could potentially put it the other way around. Like I say, deadlifts, get the big exercise out the way where there's more chance for stuff to go wrong, where you need the muscles to be more fresh. You want to then go and put somebody on a machine where all they've got to do sort of extend their legs afterwards. You can, because they're not at risk of putting their back out or arching their back over while they're picking up a big heavy weight or something like that. So yeah, that's the way that I always thought about it. Do the bigger, more challenging exercises first, and then do sort of the more sort of supplementary additional sort of exercises afterwards as well. That was the way that I always tried to structure things. And again, that's not on the circuit as a whole, that's just in terms of sort of sequence of exercise.
Yeah. So would you ever have it in a session, right, where like, because I know you say you mix it up sometimes as well, so would you have like upper body, lower body, and then would you maybe do sometimes 2 lower body and then 1 upper body, lower body again, just to like if the 2 exercises are wed quite nicely, like they kind of go with each other?
Oh, definitely, yeah, definitely. I mean, I've sometimes done like this idea of training like opposite muscles as well, of course, because of course we've got our quadricep muscles down the front of our thighs, then we've got hamstrings on the back. So that was where I used to take this idea of supersets quite a lot, and I would just I would work the opposite muscle straight afterwards, because there's actually a lot of research that says a muscle is stronger when the opposite muscle has just been worked. So just to give that a little bit of context, this idea of sort of opposing muscles. So if you've got your bicep, I don't know, I'll just flick over so I can make sure that my arm's actually on the screen. So if you talking about this idea of sort of like the elbow joint, you've got the bicep that contracts to bring your elbow that way, and you've got your tricep that contracts to work it the other way. Yeah, so if I'd have just done a bicep exercise, I would potentially have the next person or the next station be a tricep exercise straight away, just so that they can get that little bit extra out. And of course, we're trying to make sure that we're getting a good sort of balance and a good mix around the body as well. So again, it would depend on what the rest of the session would look like. It would depend on what the other exercise is focused on. I would quite often even just like I used to call it like my little black book, where I'd have like just a list in the back of upper body exercises, core exercises, lower body exercises. And when I was putting a circuit together, I could just sit and just sort of okay, I've done this exercise, so we've done squats. I need another leg exercise, but I'm not going to pick between the other varieties of squats that we've got, because we've done squats. I can pick something else, it might be lunges, it could be a side lunge, it could be anything, it could be a glute bridge, anything like that, So again, just when I get to the end, I would have a look through. I would say, like, have I got myself a good mix? Have I got a good balance of upper body, lower body, maybe core in there? Again, thinking about the actual focus of your circuit. The fitness video that I've actually attached to the end of today's session actually is just an upper lower body split, where you'll do like 1 upper body, 1 lower body, 1 upper and 1 lower, like I sort of mentioned earlier on in the session as well. And again, just making sure it's nice and evenly balanced. The focus of the circuit wasn't core, so I don't need to think to myself, right, I need to get some core in here somewhere. So if it frees up, I can do more lower and more upper body exercises as well. So that is something that you'll be thinking about before you really sort of finalize your circuit, and what it is that you're going to do is going to be that idea of what do you want the benefit to be, what do you want people to get away from. You might decide that you just want to do an abs only class, which takes away this whole idea of like, right, do you jump from upper to lower to abs? Like, that's where you're thinking about things a little bit more, and you might be thinking, okay, like, what exercise is going to work my lower back a little bit more, and then, like I say, can I find an exercise to do next that's going to just relieve that a little bit so I can recover a little bit. So that might be going from doing something like a again, buddy, you know that one that you'd mentioned earlier on, sort of like that earthquake sort of position,
Yeah,
almost
yeah,
like
yeah.
a V. Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily again go into that straight after a plank,
Yeah.
or I wouldn't go from that straight into a plank.
Mm-hmm.
But what I could do, could get a medicine ball and start doing some medicine ball slams and really
Got
getting
it.
that sort of ab contraction there as well,
Yeah.
without worrying about, right, that last exercise was quite tasking on my lower back. I don't want this next one to be as well,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But you can also still get emphasis in the right place.
Yeah.
You know, if we can actually go to the next slide, buddy. Another one that you could use. The picture on the right hand side. I've put on there as like a finishing position for a push up, which is an exercise that I use.
Yeah,
That I use
that's good,
like
yeah.
it's almost like a T press up. So you'll do your press up. And in order to get your arm up in the air and get that twist, of course, you need to push up with a little bit more purpose, a little bit more focus, a little bit more explosive. And then you're actually coming into that T-stand position where you've actually got the side of your core working as well. And you can actually use a very similar position as like a side plank. So
Right, yeah, of course.
you're actually working your obliques. If you've ever done any, I think there's some in the abs class that we've got up on the channel, side planks.
Yeah, classic.
You're gonna feel how, of course, when you're side on, your hips gonna try and dip down towards the floor because of the nature of gravity. So, of course, the other side of your core is engaged to stop that from dipping as well. So you're working your core without working the front or the back. So you could fit that in quite nicely. I've done that before, where I've done like because the nature of a circuit, of course, you do the station once and then you move on to the next station. So if you've got a station doing a side plank on one side, you need a station to do the side plank on the other as well.
Do you ever? Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, that makes because you've got to balance it out, right? But
of course you do. Yeah, so you might actually use that to mix it up. You might do sort of like a plank, or you might do your sit-ups and get your abs tired, and then throw in like a side plank. So the front and the back really are resting while you're like the side of your core is engaged. And then by the next time you come to doing your plank, like I say, for example, your lower back's had a chance to rest up, and you can go in with those muscles a little bit more fresh. Because of course it stands to reason, the more tired a muscle gets, the harder it's going to be working, and potentially the more strain you're going to be putting onto your skeleton, or at the very least other muscles as well. So yeah, it's not just about training a muscle into the ground and making it like scream at you at the time. You know, we've got to think about our training and how long the circuit is, and actually being able to last as long as the circuit is as well. You know, if you're giving people 60 seconds work time at a time, you know, there are certain exercises that are going to be really, really tough after 20 seconds. I think, you know, so again, think about how suitable those are as well for your circuit.
Of course, yeah. I think press-ups are one of the got to be good stable for circuits, right? Because there's just so many variations. There's got to be like 100 different variations of press-ups that you can actually do, like, you know what I mean, like and that you can kind of tweak them to fit whatever you're doing, you know, whether it's like if you've got it like kind of closed grip, so it's more focused on your triceps. If it's wider, you know, you've got an alternative option. People can have the knees down on the ground if they've got a bad back or whatever it may be, you know. So it's like
just building up that strength. Yeah,
exactly. So there's just a million different types. One of the press ups that I used to like was I think they're called like alligator walk press ups. So it's like you do a press up, you put one of your hands forward, you press up, then you move your foot forward, you do it like that, and you kind of walk as you're doing a press up, and it's like you kind of hitting your body in like different angles.
So many different muscle fibers. Yeah, absolutely, buddy. Little bit of trivia. I'm not sure if you know this yourself, buddy. So a muscle fiber either fires at all 100% or not at all.
Right. Yeah.
So there. Yeah. So there is no like, oh, I've used this part of my chest a little bit. You know, like you've either used it or you haven't, and that is where hitting them different angles comes in so handy. Because like I say, like through a flat range, you've worked the muscle fibers that you've worked, and you've missed the ones that you've missed. Like there's no way around that. Like you're either stimulating through that range or not. I've actually done circuits before that have had 2 or 3 different types of press up in them. You know, you might do a wide press up, then you might do a couple of legs exercises, then you might get to a close press up, more legs exercises, then you might do it like a T press up. And like you say, there's so many different angles you can work from, and so much different benefit you can get to your body. But that is where your circuit cards are going to be crucial, really. Like if you weren't really sort of clued up on, you know, where does a closer press up put the emphasis on the body? Where does a wider press up put the emphasis on the body? And you just got to a circuit card that said press ups, T press ups, white diamond press ups. You wouldn't really know where to start. And you wouldn't know where you were supposed to be feeling it, that's for sure. Because if you were doing a diamond press up and you're thinking, press ups, they work my chest, and all of a sudden your triceps are screaming at you, you'd be thinking you're doing it wrong. When really it's right for what you were doing. I told you before about that guy who came up to us on the gym floor when I was with a client and started dissecting the way that I was getting her to do a chest press. And he was like, "Oh no, you need to come wider. I can't believe he's got you doing that." And I was like, "Well, it's actually close grip press ups for a triceps."
Was that guy a PT?
No, well, he wasn't a PT in the gym. He reckons he was a PT and he was qualified. I never saw him work with anybody at all. And he was a self-admitted steroid user.
Oh, man.
So again, not to say that discredits his knowledge or his understanding or anything like that. But he was using shortcuts.
Yeah.
He was using additional supplementation. Potentially making up for gaps in his own training. So I was gobsmacked. My client just looked at it and I was like,
mad, dude. Like, I couldn't
What
even
can you do?
The level of audacity that someone must have to go over to a session and say something like that. It's bad enough, mate, when a stranger comes up to you. Like mate, if someone's coming up to you and they genuinely are sincere and they think like, they've got some advice that they really want to help you with, okay, that's absolutely fine. But like, just for someone to come up and have to like, I would never dream of that in a million years. Like to say like, oh, excuse me. Like I told you, the classic one that happened to me was when I had a weights belt on, mate. I had a weights belt on doing my deadlift. And the guy came over and he asked me, he was like, have you got, not a trainer, by the way, just a random guy, slimmer than I was. And he was a little bit older than me. And then he came over and he was like, have you got any injuries and whatever? And I was like, oh, no. And he was like, oh, well, you don't really need to wear a weights belt unless you've got an injury because, and just all this nonsense. And I was just thinking like, all right, well, I'm still going to wear it, but thanks anyway. And I was trying to be as nice as possible. Yeah. But I was thinking, that's just nonsense. Like, a weights belt, there's no major disadvantage to using that if it's going to protect my lumbar. And I know that, and I knew that at the time, so I just ignored it. But, like, So just to kind of reiterate, if someone comes over and, like, you're literally about to, like, snap something, like, someone's doing an exercise totally wrong, that's fine because they've got, but the fact that someone could be so confidently incorrect, that is the annoying thing.
The thing.
That they can come over and they're so confidently incorrect, and it's it's just mental.
Yeah, and you can tell, can't you, when there's a little bit of malice involved. You know what I mean? The right way to deal. If he did genuinely believe or have questions about the way I was instructing my client, just catch me after the session. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
You know me. I'd like to think I'm as approachable as anybody. Do you know what I mean? Like, especially on the gym floor, come and ask us questions, come and have a little bit crack. And then that really, really did throw us, But yeah, like you say, buddy, there are so many different ways you can do different exercises. It's not just a case of looking at someone and saying, oh, they're doing that wrong. Do you know what I mean? I must storm over now and let them know.
It really does. There's some deep level of insecurity for someone to feel like they have to say that to make themselves feel more confident about it. Because if they were really confident in that, they would never say anything like that because they're obviously very insecure about the whatever it may be. So it's like, because that's it. So they're trying to like convince themselves. That's basically what it is. I think at least.
I think so. Yeah, I agree with you there, buddy. But yeah, I guess really, coming back to our circuits and stuff like that, is it like there's a lot of different ways we can do very, very similar exercises, and sometimes just them little tweaks are very, very specific, and they might not always be as blatant to someone who's not necessarily in the know.
Yeah.
So again, if you get to a station and it's written on a card, like, not only in like a diagram, but a description how you could do it. It tells you that like, okay, this one you should feel in the triceps a little bit more than the pecs. You're thinking like, okay, this is working. I know what I'm supposed to be doing now. Push-ups are a really, really good. Like you say, they're a really, really good staple for especially upper body exercise, like upper body training and stuff like that. Now, when it comes to push-ups, I've found that particularly a lot of females, a lot of women, either don't have the strength or feel like they don't have the strength, or necessarily just the confidence in their own strength and their own abilities. And I've always sort of thought about press-ups, like just take it back to the old drawing board, lay yourself down on the floor, get your hands by your side where they actually feel, where they feel relatively good, and where you feel as though you've got a good point of contact that you could push from. Tighten your core up like you were planking, and then just press from there. Just press from there. Pivot on your knees if you need to at first while you get that movement down, and then you get used to that movement. You get used to where your elbow should be, and then you can build up from there. And if you come down to the floor every time, you're not worried about having to push back up. It's so weird. It's so weird how your mindset works against you. Like if you know you've got to push back up, you're controlling how far you come down. And I've seen people doing half reps just from like, oh, if I go any further, I won't get back up. It's like, no, come all the way to the floor, and then push back up from there, and you'll actually be stronger.
Would you advise someone to do, if they can't do pull-ups, press-ups, would you advise them to do planks first to get used to the movement and be able to carry the weight, or do you reckon it wouldn't really help that much? Would you rather them do like an alternative press-up first before they did that?
They'd probably be better off doing what we'd call like a wall press, which is kind of like just leaning against the wall. Obviously, the more of an incline, the more you're leaning into the wall, the more challenging that's going to be for your pecs, because obviously you're working against gravity the more and more that you tilt it forward. But that's how I've started a lot of people off before. Of course, you've got the idea of doing very similar movement but not exact. You've got just a bench press. Get somebody to lay on their back and do a bench press, which is a very similar movement.
Of course,
I've had people do bench press open palm before, just to take away because you're not going to be doing a press up on your knuckles.
Yeah.
So why learn to do a bench press where you've got your hands balled up into a fist as well?
Or the Smith machine, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah. But even just like if you can get a bit of a cup with your hand, sometimes it is just about the movement and not necessarily the weight. So I've had people do it with not like a proper barbell, but if you've ever seen, like if you've been to like a body pump class or something like that, they're like plastic barbells that weigh essentially nothing, and you just clip your weights on the side. You can use that just as like a prop. I've used broom handles, I've used brushes, just anything, just this idea of like, just get this movement pattern down. And when your nerves learn how to fire the muscles to get you through that range, you're going to be stronger anyway. Sometimes it's learning how to do the movement, and then the strength will come a lot quicker than just having to build it up. Like if you never learn how to do an exercise right, you will only ever go so far. If you learn straight away how to do it right, your potential is limitless, really. You know how far that you can go with it. But press ups, that would be the way I would do it. Get someone pressing against the wall, maybe using maybe as a Smith machine or a bar that doesn't really use much weight, and then start to use the knees as a pivot point. And then what I've actually done was, if you've got anything really, I guess I've used, if you've ever used like ever seen like a power bag in the gym, it's just like a big bag full of sand, pretty much. Where like I might have like a handle on each end, and you might use them for swings and slams. I've actually used those, or even just like a rolled up yoga mat, and I've put it like halfway down someone's shins. So that's the pivot point. So it's somewhere between being on your nose and being on your knees and being on your toes. It's somewhere halfway in between, and it's making your body that little bit longer, making it harder without going full on the way onto your toes as well. So there's ways that you can build up to that as well, rather than just jumping in, trying to do press ups, having your elbows flying all over the place because you're not strong enough to be doing what you're trying to do, or your muscles don't know how to fire through the range that they're trying to. And you can actually you can hurt your shoulders doing them wrong, for something that is so simple.
Remembered one of the horrible press-up variations they do in Insanity, where it's like you go down but you raise your knee out to the side and you kind of touch your elbow with your knee, and then you go down the press-up, straighten your leg out, and then you switch legs. And you keep doing it like that, and oh my god, that's awful. So bad.
Yeah, definitely. Upper body and lower body working together. Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of sort of like combo moves out there now, and that's the sort of stuff that I really enjoy doing, because it's more engaging. Harder to do when you're tired. Harder to do when you're tired, and for that reason, I would only maybe chuck one or two of them into sort of specific circuits. If you you're going to have someone doing skipping, shuttle runs, medicine ball slams, tire flips, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to be pretty gassed potentially by the time they get to the point of like thinking about this exercise where I'm moving this and moving this at the same time as well. But yeah, there's a lot of them sort of functional compound exercises out there as well. But yeah, when it comes to certainly when it comes to upper body, you know, look no further than a push up and a lot of the different variations that you can have. Definitely, I used to do one where I would actually come down chest to floor every time and then actually try and lift my palms up. So you actually stretch the pecs even further. Like you just get that little bit of an extra stretch and then push from there back through in the next range as well. Yeah. And it just mixes it up a little bit. And that's going to be up for you to decide. Do you want different types of press ups in your circuit, or are you just going to have one type? Are you then going to use different types to make it a little bit easier, a little bit harder, you know, depending if people need it. So plenty to think about there, guys. If we just roll on to the next slide, we've got something a little bit closer to the sort of thing that you were just on about there, buddy. And of course, one of my favorites as well, mountain climbers. I love a mountain climber. If you've never seen them, you're down in that plank position, and of course, you're just bringing. You can see that picture on the right hand side. You're bringing sort of one knee up towards your elbows, up towards your chest, and then you're going to like jump and swap them over as well. So you're almost like sprinting, but like parallel to the floor at the same time. So you're in a plank. I guess that's probably the way you could think about it. You're combining sprinting with planking, which I guess when you put it that way sounds like absolute torture. But yeah, again, there's a lot of different ways we can do them. You can bring your knee straight in. You can bring your knee a little bit more out to the side and up towards your elbow and get your oblique again down the side of your core working a little bit harder. This workout in particular actually kicked my backside when I was filming it. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out on
Dude,
the channel.
I did this one, mate.
Is this the one you did? And messages
it's rough, man. It is rough. I was sweating my buns off after I did it. I was like, it's a good one. This one, it really is.
And I think I picked, like you can see on the right hand side, there's not a cloud in the sky. I picked like the most roasting day, like up last year. I picked that day to do it outside. I was like, go on, it'll be nice. I filmed the last few indoors. We'll get outside, and it wrecked us. It absolutely wrecked us.
So difficult to be a PT sometimes. Like when if you've done like 2 or maybe sometimes maybe 3 of those in a day, and like you're on the last, and like you're talking as well, so it's like you're like instructing while you're doing it. I mean, sometimes it must be exhausted sometimes, and like you've got to look like you can't look too knackered. Like it's okay for you to be out of breath, obviously, because you're doing exercise, but you can't be like.
So give us a minute, guys. Give us a minute.
It must be like pretty hard, man.
Yeah, there's definitely a balance. Certainly, as an instructor, there's this balance between working hard, demonstrating, and setting a good example, and then just making sure that they know that it's their workout and not yours.
Yeah, true.
It's like people saying like, I'm working harder than you, and like you say, that's where you can say, well, this is my 4th one of the day. How many have you done today? You know, but definitely, you know, there is this, and I used to say it to people. I used to say like, I'm more used to you. I'm more beneficial to you if I can breathe and talk. Do you know what I mean? Like if I'm breathless and speechless, I may as well not be here. In terms of being an instructor, I'm much more used to you. I'm much more valuable to you. In a position where I can sort of talk and breathe, you know. So go, buddy.
It's so cheesy, but I used to love in Insanity when like if they're doing an exercise and he goes up and walks around and he gets like right next to them and he starts doing it next to them. It's so cheesy.
Oh yeah.
But it's like he encourages them while he's doing it with them. But it's mint though.
Yeah. Speeds them up. Like I mentioned before, like there was one that I used to do. Press ups, actually, now I think about it, certain people, especially when I knew that they didn't like press ups or it was something that they were working on, I'd make sure that as they got to that circuit or that station on the circuit, I would be there with them as well, and we'd do press ups together. I would go at their pace. Rather than like, oh, keep up with me. I'd go at their pace, and then after each one, we'd come up and like high five in the middle. And then go back down to another one, high five in the middle, which again is just that little bit more engaging. Like if I was doing that every set, I'd be absolutely goosed by the end of it. I'd have done like 10 sets of press ups while every different person came round to that station. But yeah, you know, there's definitely this idea of knowing your own limits and where you're gonna be working so hard that you're not going to actually be as beneficial and as valuable to the group and to the class as you could be if you just sort of dialed it back a little bit, you know. your chances are that you're training in the gym by yourself, for yourself. People want to see how hard that you do work when you are training. They're going to see it throughout the day. It's not about working yourself as hard as you can through every class that you instruct. Definitely not. You're much better being there in the ears of the members and giving them all the help that they need.
Exactly, man. Would you still work out on the days that you had like a lot of sessions, or obviously because that is a workout in itself? So
I would just think about the way I was doing it, depending what those classes were. Do you know what I mean? If I had no classes booked in, I would be doing more sort of circuit type training, that sort of thing by myself. If it was a day where I had classes booked and that sort of thing, it'd be a case of, right, I'll do the weights. I'll maybe do like me 3-4 sets of 8, 10 maybe. Keep my recovery time a little bit longer because I know that cardio effect I am going to get later on. And as well for myself, of course, I haven't got a huge appetite, so I was making sure I was getting some cardio in, thinking about what we mentioned earlier on, but I was making sure that I wasn't doing so much cardio that I was needing to eat food that I just didn't have the appetite for as well, you know. There would be some days I would have the choice of doing like a cardio session or eating. And for my goals, eating was actually more beneficial, you know.
Nice.
You know, do I burn more calories? Do I eat more calories? It was a bit of a no-brainer when you're trying to put size on, you know. But that was definitely something that I had to be mindful of as well. It was something that I could fit into my own training though. It was like, okay, I'm teaching an abs class on a Friday morning, so I'm not going to train abs the day before or the day after, and I'll be able to do some on Friday morning.
Yeah.
But I'll make sure that my dedicated abs training might be Sunday afternoon when the gym's quiet.
Brilliant.
You know, when I've had a couple of days rest before and after, and I know that I'm going to be fresh coming back round to the next ones as well. That was the way that I would always do it. It was always just like adapting to what was going on, changing schedules, changing class timetables and stuff like that. But something again that you kind of have to manage as an instructor, because if you turned up to 4 classes that you were running and you absolutely just hammered it through every single one, you potentially just got to burn yourself out. And like I say, you get to the point where by the last session of the day, nobody's going to be turning up because you're going to be miserable and you're going to have no enthusiasm about you. You know, it's that's what you're there for. You're not there to show people how well you can train. You're there to show people how well they can train.
It's a good point. Good point.
That's it. You're there to set an example and motivate. You're not there to say this is what I'm capable of. Do you know what I mean? Like, use me as a standard. That's not the case at all, because a lot of people aren't training for the same reasons I am, you know, coming back to that. So thinking about it, I want people to get the most out of it for their goals, you know, not necessarily for me. And if the session's not necessarily related to my goals, why would I be working as hard as I possibly could? You know, so I'll save that energy. I'll instruct the members, and I'll save that energy for something that's conducive to my own goals as well, you know. So yeah, a lot of it is just sort of constantly just assessing what's going on with your schedule. And again, you know, that's other exercise, food, sleep, other responsibilities, just like we talk about when we're talking about barriers to exercise. How do we make sure we can get stuff in while staying safe and making sure that we're working towards our goals? And believe it or not, that is still something that you need to think about as a PT. You know, you might think, oh, it's like they work in the gym, they live in a gym, they're teaching classes all day, it's easy to be fit. But again, you should know by now, guys, the idea of fitness means something totally different to everybody as well, you know. So again, like, I've led classes that for my own goals would just make no sense for me to be participating in, you know. So again, I'll demonstrate. Again, if you've seen any of the Media Savvy videos, you'll know that I demonstrate before we get started, so people can just hit the ground running and make the most of their work time, you know. But yeah, thinking about is this a class that I would be doing if I wasn't a PT? If the answer is no, I'm certainly not going to hammer myself while I'm instructing. Especially if, like you say, it's the 3rd or 4th one of the day, that's for sure. So these couple of exercises that we've got here, definitely check out this video if you're feeling brave and give this one a go. I will say don't do it in the baking midday heat. Not advised. That was an ill-advised decision after I believe we were a couple of months into lockdown by this point, and it was nice to be able to get outside and actually film this one outside. Training in the blazing heat isn't necessarily the best idea as well. So definitely want to think about. And that's the video where I get an earful from the dog next door as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do remember it actually. Yeah.
Coach next door letting us know that I was encroaching on chilling out in the garden times, jumping all over me decking and doing burpees and heavy breathing and stuff. He didn't appreciate it, so he let us know about that.
Is that
Go on,
Has your dog made friends with next doors yet? Or
Oh mate, yeah, he absolutely loves them. They
class?
haven't. They've only met through the fence. They've only met through the fence for the time being, and it went from like my pooch wasn't so sure because it was still a puppy and next door was bigger. And like within a couple of weeks, my dog's bigger and next door's not so sure about.
Class.
It's only a little. I'm not sure what breed it is actually, but it's just a little. But yeah, like my pooch, it hasn't had a bad. He hasn't had a bad experience with any other dogs yet. So every other dog is just a plaything and it's a toy and it's a potential new friend. Like there's a big dog a couple of gardens down that we haven't met yet that's got like a big old bark on him, and he goes off every now and then and he looks at me like, is this okay, Dad? Is this all right? But yeah, I'm like, yeah, he, like I say, as long as I don't react to stuff like in a way that's going to make him anxious, he's good as gold. And yeah, he gets on really well with any other dog he meets. I'm looking forward to bringing him in to meet Diego. His biggest problem is like I say, he's just got so much energy and he's so excited. So all the dogs, I just cannot be bothered. Just cannot be bothered with like a little puppy jumping and running and sniffing. And yeah, he's a handful, but in all the best ways, bless him. It really is.
Classic.
But of course, that's getting us more exercise as well. Now he's needing walking and stuff like that. You know, I know we've got learners that not that is ever a reason to go out and get a dog, but it is something that you could certainly factor in as a positive into your decision. You know, just you know, it's an excuse to get out for a walk a couple of times a day, and get out there and get some fresh air as well. So yeah, definitely. Okay, guys. So these exercises that we're looking at on screen are although you're going to feel it in certain muscles, I always put them down as more of a cardio exercise. You know, it would be, you're going to get the same effect as sort of skipping, shuttle runs, that sort of thing. You're going to feel it on your heart and your lungs and your CV system a little bit more than, say, like, oh, your thigh muscles are going to be burning, like they might at the end of a squat, or like tuck jumps and jumping squats and stuff like that. So again, like certain sessions, again, thinking about what benefit you want people to get, you can make sure that there's a little bit of cardio in there as well. Again, I used to do like a couple of resistance exercises. So I might do sort of like a weighted squat, a kettlebell swing into mountain climbers, you know, so those muscles are resting. Top up that heart rate again, make sure that heart rate's nice and high, and then go back into another couple of resistance exercises as well. So again, loads of different ways you can structure it, loads of different ways you can put things together, which is, again, it's one of the massive benefits of circuit training because it's impossible to get bored of, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You get bored of your exercises, change your exercises. You get bored of working for 30 seconds at a time, change it to 45, change it to 60, come down and do 20 seconds on, 10 seconds rest. There's two different experiences doing 60 seconds on, 30 seconds rest, as opposed to doing 20 seconds on, 10 seconds rest. Different training altogether. Again, that would be the sort of thing I'd get people doing hill sprints on, because 20 seconds is enough hill sprinting for anybody. Like,
oh God.
to give someone 60 seconds of running uphill on a treadmill would just be absolutely brutal.
It's demolition, man.
Yeah, definitely. So again, thinking about what I want my members to get out of it, remembering that I am planning the circuit for them and not me. And again, thinking about how can I make things a little bit harder. I've actually used these exactly that way before. If I've had people who can't get down into the mountain climber position, you know, either sort of through mobility, maybe it's their lower back hurts, especially when you're lifting one foot off the floor and you've got one less point of contact with the floor. If that hurts, stand yourself upright and just do high knees, like run on the spot as best you can, or even just march on the spot. You don't have to run. Thinking about impact, you can reduce it down and boil it back as far as you want to the point where you're just walking on the spot and raising your knees. Because if you need to come back down to that point, that's going to be enough. That's going to be enough to get your heart rate up and get you working as well. So again, thinking about, I wouldn't necessarily put these two both in the same circuit. You might use the high knees as sort of like a regression exercise for the mountain climbers, and then I don't know, you could maybe turn them into sprints, you know, and make them as fast as possible to make them a little bit harder. So there's a lot of different ways we can modify these exercises as well to just, like I say, make them a little bit easier, a little bit harder, depending on the individual that's doing them as well. So much to think about when it comes to putting your circuit together. And like I said, the beauty of it is there's not really a wrong way to do it. You know, as long as think about the benefit that you want members to get, And of course, always put health and safety first. You want your members to be coming out of the session uninjured, ready to come back for the next one, because it doesn't only help your business, and of course keep your classes full and keep people turning up. It keeps people on track, because if there's one thing that we identify as a barrier to exercise, it's injury. And if you're training in a way that's going to get you injured, you'll only get so far before you need to take a little bit of time off. I would rather people, when it comes to this idea of, because I've trained people over the years that just want a beasting. They just want to leave the session feeling like they're going to throw up and aching for 3 days.
Yeah.
Like that is all they want out of the session. And it gets to the point, and I don't know if you've been through that stage yourself, because when you start training, everything hurts. You're not seeing any results, and you wonder why on earth you're doing what it is that you're doing. It gets to the point where you start to see results, and all of a sudden you go, oh, okay, so that pain's a good feeling.
Well,
and you get to the point, you go looking for it, don't you? And you're sometimes potentially even disappointed when you're not sore the next day.
Exactly, man. Exactly. It does. You get to the point where you think like, well, I don't have any kind of DOMS. I don't have any of that pain, that soreness. So I obviously haven't worked hard enough. That it's literally, because you become so accustomed to that. You're right.
Yeah. So be aware that this idea of no pain, no gain can actually go too far. And of course you can hurt yourself, and you could just be working hard for the sake of working hard when it's not even geared towards your goals. Like that's a hell of an ethic to have. It's a really good work ethic to have, like this, just make it harder, keep us going. Like I'll take whatever you throw at us sort of thing. That's something that you like to see in a client, but not this idea of like, just make me suffer more for the sake of suffering more. Because like you say, it's not always about training till failure. It's not always about working at 100%. It's not always about just going until a muscle won't work anymore. Sometimes rest and taking things a bit easier and easing off and coming off the gas a little bit can be a lot more beneficial for what it is that you're actually trying to do as well. So be thinking about certain clients and certain members you'll get used to, and you'll just know that you've got to keep an eye on them from working too hard as well. There will be a case of they might not know that you've put these two exercises together. They might not know that you've split these different press ups up for totally like for whatever reasons you have, and they might get to one type of press ups and think, oh, okay, this is a bit easier. I'm finding this a bit easier. I'm going to change it up, and I'm going to go back to these other ones, or I'm going to try these other ones that I've seen before, without realizing that you might have put them in there for a very specific reason as well. So again, there will be people who are just going to try and just be aware, there are going to be people that are just going to try and run themselves into the ground every single session, even if it is just chasing those DOMs the next day. While I'm on, and before we do move on, a bit of peace of mind for everybody. There's no correlation between DOMs and progress.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, there is no indicator of how hard you've worked based on how sore you are. Your recovery can play an effect. How your immune system is at the time can play an effect. The food that you've eaten, how well you've slept, that's all going to play an effect. It stands to reason. If you work hard, don't eat right, don't really sleep very well, don't let yourself recover, you're going to be sore the next day. If you don't cool down, you could do the same workout, and you could potentially do the same workout and give yourself more time to recover, get some good food in you, get some good protein in, and potentially not feel it. So it's not an indicator of how hard you've worked, how hard you've trained. But I feel like a lot of people do think like this idea of, okay, I'm embracing the pain a little bit more now because in the past it has meant results and things are starting to change, which is it's usually undeniable. That usually is the case, which means that we get to this idea with this idea of being able to push through pain moves up sort of like moves up your priority list, because that it's something that you need to do, and you're not just aching for the sake of it, because those first couple of weeks can be tough, which is again another reason. Don't overdo it the first couple of weeks. Let yourself ease in, let yourself start to feel good and see these little differences and feel these things changing. Ease yourself in, rather than spend the first 3 weeks, go to the gym 5 days a week, and you just ache for the thick end of a month. And then you think, oh, well, I haven't lost that stone that I was hoping to lose, in a month. I'm gonna stop going. It can be disheartening. You can end up like I say, injuries and stuff like that. And like I say, there's nothing gonna get in the way of your goals as fast as injuries, because if you can't train, you can't be making progress really. So yeah, we want to make sure that we're thinking about just staying safe.
like when I was doing Insanity, there's like a next level after the normal one, and it's like Insanity Max or whatever, and it's like the sessions go from being like 45 minutes to like an hour and 20. And dude, literally, I did a couple. I tried to do it for like a couple weeks, and it's like I don't understand how anybody can physically do that because it's just ridiculous. And like I was
Yeah.
dead for like 2 to 3 days maybe, and it was like I couldn't keep doing it because there was no, it was impossible. My body, like the amount of time it would take my body to recover just kind of outweighed, it would totally ruin the program. I wouldn't be able to do the program because I had to recover for too long.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like, I just don't understand how like that's actually like a level of fitness that actually exists. it's like,
Exist. Oh,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah,
that's
yeah.
easy for people. Like for me, it was just madness, dude, because it was like all of the exercises that were already hard times two, and it's like
Yeah.
it's just like I can't believe that that people do that.
Yeah, that's essentially like you said that they've doubled the session, haven't they? Pretty much from 45 minutes up to an hour 20. Like that is nearly double. Yeah, and like you say, like if you do one and then say, right, I'm gonna just drag myself to the next one, no pain, no gain, and you'll go into your next one where you're already aching and your muscles can't fire in the way that they need to. You're on a one-way ticket to just getting yourself hurt.
Yeah, man.
Like you really are, and like I say, you've got to think about where you are in your own training. And I've seen people do it where like I've turned up into work and looked at who's booked onto a class, and you see the same name booked onto 3 classes in a row. You're like, oh, they're going to do circuits, then they're going to do spin, then they're going to do abs. You're like, they're not working hard enough in the first two if they can still do the third.
Yeah,
That's for
yeah,
sure.
exactly.
You know, I always used to say like you should be working hard enough in your first that you can't stay and do another one,
Exactly.
unless it was something like going from a boot camp into a Pilates or a stretching or a yoga or
Yeah,
something
something that's
like that.
actually going to complement
Bit of
the
a
other one.
wind down,
Yeah,
of
yeah.
course. Yeah, yeah,
That's actually a
definitely.
good point. Like,
Um,
no, yeah. I want to ask as well, Rob. So, like, when you're doing some, like, when you're making circuits, do you ever put like two exercises in the same circuit, in the same circuit? So, I'm sorry, no. Can I just? Do you ever put two exercises in a station? So obviously you've got like separate stations, but do you ever have like two exercises in one station?
I have done that. I have done that. Yeah. Now, of course, you've got to be working the time at that point because you've got to keep everybody in sync and you've
Mm-hmm.
got to make sure that you're getting obviously an equal amount on both sides. But yeah, I might have somebody do like 10 medicine ball slams and then take a step forward and do 10 battle rope slams or something like that. That sort of thing. Or I've had people do tire flips and then they'll jump up and over the tire, face the other way. So they've got like they're at the other side of the tire now, and then they'll flip it back the other way. So not only are they doing tire flips, but they're actually like jumping and climbing over the tire each time as well. Yeah, you could put different exercises on and just say to people like it's almost like AMRAP training where it's like as many reps as possible. Where you would say to someone, right, you've got 60 seconds. Your combo that you're doing, for example, is right. I want you to do 5 medicine ball slams. Come forward, hit the tire 5 times this way with a sledgehammer. Hit the tire 5 times this way with a sledgehammer, and then go back to your medicine balls and do the same. Just work through that for 60 seconds, and then move on to the next station. You could do that. Again, it depends how many people you've got turning up. Because of course that's something to think about as well. If you've got 10 stations, you only kitted up for 10 people showing up, really, unless you're going to start pairing people up and saying, right, you two go around together, then you need 2 of everything. And it becomes so much harder to manage. It's handy. I just used to have, again, coming back to circuit cards, I used to keep cards on us. And if I had 1 or 2 people turn up that I wasn't expecting, and I need to put a couple of extra stations in, just like, right, that card's ready to go, that card's ready to go, I can slot these in wherever I'm going to put them in, get a bit of kit ready to go, and there you go, we can deal with that, rather than, like I say, if you're trying to pair people up, you've got to have 2 of everything on each station for when they get there, pretty much. But yeah, you definitely could pair things up. It's almost getting onto being a little bit CrossFit-y, really, isn't it? If you would do sort of like 10 heavy squats and then do 10 tuck jumps or something like that, hitting those muscles different. But yeah, that's a really good question, buddy. Yeah, you could on different stations pair different exercises up if you wanted to.
I think it's obviously it makes sense as well, right? So you've got 10 people, there's 10 circuits, and they're all timed for like 60 seconds, right? Because I was just imagining in my head where it's like if you had a system where like when you finish the exercise, you move on to the next one and you kind of keep going. But that could work, I'd imagine. But then also it could be an issue if one exercise is longer than all the other ones, and then everyone kind of queues behind one station.
That's it.
You know what I
That's
mean?
it.
So,
I've had it. Yeah, I've had it. The way that I used to work around that, really, I used to I'd design a circuit but then I would feed people in to this circuit one at a time, like a train. So the way that I used to run this circuit, and this is more just like, rather than something we can use in our own circuits, it's more just like just the way that I dealt with this in the past. Because like I say, if you're trying to say to somebody, right, you're going to do over here you do 10 tire flips, over here you do 20 medicine ball slams, over here you do 30 jumping jacks or whatever it might be. Like you say, some people are going to work through those faster than others, so you end up with like a little bit of a queue. So what I would do, I would start with the queue and then just set somebody away on the first exercise, maybe let them get a couple of exercises in, and then bring the next person in. And I would say, right, I'm going to set the timer away when your first person goes, and I'm going to stop the timer when your last person finishes. Right. So you're working as a team. When you're finished, you get turned around and start motivating your team to get through. Do you know what I mean? Because you're all working together on the same timer, but then you don't get that bottleneck effect because you can let certain people get so far ahead up to a certain exercise that might take a little bit longer, and then just send the next person in that way. But if you've got all people working at the same time, I always just used to work the time because it's so much easier to keep everything sort of flowing and sort of organized. Because like I say, if you've got you end up with people queuing up, you've got people stood resting, you know. Not to mention the fact that, you know, they've maybe taken time out of their day, their evening, their Sunday morning, whatever it might be. They've paid for the privilege of coming along, and they're literally just stood there waiting on someone else finishing their exercise. It's not why I get out of bed on the morning. It's not why I train. Now, of course, there's nothing wrong with sort of motivating people and helping each other and working as a group. But when you've got, like, when you're 7 people back in the queue just to do some kettlebell swings, you know, it's going to put you off a little bit. You could just go do them kettlebell swings in your own training. Of course, then you've got one less person for your class as well. So yeah, thinking about just keeping everybody working, keeping everybody active, keeping everybody engaged, rather than letting there be them little lulls. So yeah, that was the way that I used to do it, and I used to have a particular group of lads that used to work really well. There was only 4 of them, and like I say, they used to respond really well to that sort of training, because not only would they compete against each other, they would always want to try and get the best time possible as a unit as well. And of course, you know, helping each other out, motivating each other. You know what it's like when there's only one person left still working, but at the same time, that one person is getting motivation from and encouragement from 3 or 4 other people, rather than the ones who've gone earlier in the session, who've gone first. Who've maybe been doing the harder sessions while everybody else is working as well, and they haven't had that. So, you know, there's pros and cons, but that was just the way that I would deal with just mixing things up a little bit more for different sort of types of circuit. But for the argument's sake of for these sort of circuits, you know, we can just use a timer. I had a really good app on my phone, actually. It was called Seconds Pro. And you just program your own timer. You know, you can say, right, I want a boxing timer that does 12 rounds of 1 minute on, 30 seconds rest. And you just press play and it'll just do its own thing. I used to just plug that into the gym speakers, and then I'm not even watching my clock. Do you know what I mean? I hated the idea of needing to stopwatch, look at me stopwatch all the time to make sure, have we done a minute yet? Have we gone over a minute? When I want to be helping people, you know, so I would just set it away. When we hear the beeps, right, it's time to move on. Off you go. And that just freed me up a lot better to be more sort of helpful and a better resource to the people that were actually turning up for the class. That's for sure. Yeah. So yeah, there's different ways that we can structure it, but I've definitely found that working at time just help things be a little bit more straightforward, a little bit more structured, and just run that a little bit more smoothly. Right, buddy. So just look at these last couple of slides before we wrap up for the day. So the last couple of ones that I've got on there, rather than the more obvious lower body exercises, we've got a glute bridge on the left hand side, where we can that's more, it's like a reverse plank. I guess, you know, if you want to think about it that way, it's like a reverse plank where your body is, your hips are trying to drop because of gravity, and your bum muscles and your hamstrings are engaged to keep that lift. And yeah, really, really good for your bum. And the higher you can push your hips, the more you're going to be able to squeeze them glutes and engage them and get the sort of like the glutes working as well. And same with a lateral lunge. I like a lateral lunge because I find that day-to-day movements, we do a lot of backwards and forwards. You know, we do a lot of up and down, stairs, that sort of thing, standing up and down, like sitting, stuff like that. We don't do much natural moving side to side. You know, yeah, granted, we're not crabs, but at the same time, like, it's built into our anatomically, we can move that way. You know, And again, just at risk of going off on a little bit of a tangent, but that's something that they talk about in sports, basketball, lateral quickness. How well can you move
Yeah,
side to
yeah, it
side,
is. It's a
as
big factor. Yeah.
as well as forwards and backwards as well. So I find that it's good to get a good mix of, moving through all these different ranges that we can in our training. And of course, you're going to get sort of like the outside of the thigh work and a little bit more, as you can see on the right hand picture, where you're going to lean across into the lunge rather than coming forwards or backwards. And of course, you're going to get like the outside of the glute firing a little bit more as well, just because it's got to work to push you back across. Again, like Daniel said earlier on, is hitting different muscle fibers, because through a range you've either stimulated them or you haven't.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a case of, oh, I've used them a little bit. It's a case of those fibers have worked or they haven't. If they haven't, we need to find a way to get them stimulated. Really, we need to get them to grow, because of course, the more muscle fibers you can stimulate, not only is the more muscle you're going to grow, but the more calories you burn as well. The more different muscle, the more muscle you can use, stands to reason the more calories that's going to burn, because it uses
Definitely.
more energy as well. Yeah, so yeah, just a couple of different lower body exercises you could throw in there as well. Now you could add a little bit of weight to these if you wanted to. I've done a glute bridge with like a barbell across my hips, a kettlebell just sort of resting on your pelvis, that sort of thing. Lateral lunges, of course, you can do the same as any other lunge, dumbbell in each hand, dumbbell into your chest, barbell on the back, whatever it might be, you can add a little bit of weight to. But again, they work really well for just body weight exercises. And if you've never done them before, I haven't done them for a while, as might be the case, given that we've been locked down at home for over a year now, starting just body weight might be enough to crack on with.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
might be even stuff like just your regular squats. Maybe you used to squat 150 kg. Maybe that was a year and a half ago. Maybe you do need to go back to just some body weight squats to get them moving again. I've had it before where I've had a bit of a niggle, I've hurt my knee playing sports or whatever it might be, and I've eased off leg training for a little bit,
Course,
and
yeah.
then you go back to leg training and you're on like a fraction of the weight, even just body weight, and you get that, it's almost like a cramp. It's like the muscle says, like, what are you doing? What are you asking me to do? It's been this long. You get this cramp, and that's just from body weight.
Course, yeah.
Ease yourself in properly. This idea of like no pain, no gain. Again, you're gonna have chance to build up to the harder stuff because you're not going to be injured. The whole point is that you're not going to be injured. You're going to have chance to get there. If you jump straight in there, like I say, you might be on the sidelines before long because you've hurt yourself and you can't exercise.
That's
So again, just definitely something else to be aware of. And again, always making sure that we're putting the health and safety of members and clients first when we're planning workout plans, or in this case, when we're putting a circuit together for them to come and sort of carry out, just like I say, thinking about how we're pairing up those exercises. Is doing one exercise going to tire out the muscle so much that they're at risk of hurting themselves on the next exercise? That sort of thing, like we've sort of talked about. And of course, you guys know by now we want to get a good mix of, we want to get a good variety of exercises in there, making sure that we're getting a good mix of body parts working and stuff like that as well. If you want to make your circuit just an ab circuit or just a leg circuit or just an upper body circuit, by all means do. But that is going to need a little bit more thinking about the order that you're going to put things in, especially when it comes to being realistic and asking people to go and do this as well, because you just slam 5 core exercises or 10 core exercises back to back by the time without really thinking about it, and by the time you get to exercise 6 or 7, your back's going to be hurting. It really is, depending on how you're going to structure these things. So a lot to think about. So what you guys are going to do is go away and sort of take what we've talked about the last couple of sessions, thinking about bodyweight exercises and fitness kit, and thinking about your own circuit and starting to finalize some ideas. If we can just blast to the next page, buddy. Actually, we've actually got on there what it is that we're going to do. Again, if you guys need to come back and revisit this, no homework in the terms of filling in workbooks and that sort of thing. Again, just work on getting familiar with the 2 workbooks that we sent out last week, tools and equipments for practical activity, and using materials for practical activity as well. Like I say, just keep getting familiar with those, and now you're going to be thinking about your own circuit training session as well. So equipment you plan to use and exercises you plan to include. You can even start thinking about what order you're going to put them in if you want to. But of course, see from the bottom there, from next week, we're going to start completing some of the workbooks and actually planning the design of your own circuit training cards and starting to pull those together as well. So yeah, just time to have a little bit of a think. Of course, as always, if there's anything that you're not sure of, drop me an email. Even if you wanted to jump on like a one-to-one and Zoom and sort of bat some ideas about, I'm always happy to do that. Or even if you just wanted to email me over, look, this is my exercise list so far. What do you think? You know, however you guys want to do it, I'm always here to give you a little bit of feedback.
Of course, yeah.
But yeah, now's the time to start having a little bit of a think. And next week we're going to start actually putting pen to paper and thinking about what our circuit cards are actually going to look like as well. Okay, buddy. So if we can just go to that last slide, again, just so if anybody wants to come back, they can find this information without needing to sit through the last sort of 2 hours. As always, guys, please don't forget to fill in the survey. It's not even 30 seconds, and it makes our job a lot easier. And of course, your feedback's so important to us. We want to know what we're doing well. We want to know where we can suit you guys even better, and be there for you guys even more as well, because you guys are why we do what we do. The survey should be in the description below the video.
Yeah, it is.
Yes, it is. Yeah, that is in there with of course the link to today's fitness session, which is going to be that upper and lower body sort of split circuit, so you can get a good feeling for how that sort of feels, going from one to the other, and something you can maybe carry over into your own circuit. Of course, my email's in there as well. If you do have any questions or if you do feel like you need to get in touch. So that is all in the description below the video. Failing that, guys, we'll be back next Tuesday. We'll be back next Tuesday, 10 till 12:30. Is there anything you wanted to add this morning, buddy?
Yeah, no, just basically, I think that this is I feel like a lot of times most people they want to be able to do something like this for a home workout, but they just don't know where to start. So I feel like it applies for circuits, for yoga, anything, and so I think this is a great opportunity to be able to have like a personalized circuit as well that that you can use at home, and which is great because obviously you've got your feedback as well. So it's like to be able to kind of sit and like, this is good, this, or maybe tweak this or whatever it may be. But I think it's a great opportunity, to be able to have like your own circuit, because you're going to be able to get a great workout. Because as we mentioned earlier today, the go-to thing when people think I'm going to work out at home is they'll go for a run or something, and that's fine. Sometimes that is great, but sometimes it's not what you want. And this is something that's going to be able to kind of target, some of those muscles a bit better. And it's really good opportunity.
Yeah, that's a really good point, buddy. One thing that I do just want to finish on for today, I was like, you think, having designed circuits and some of the stuff that we've talked about this morning, if you think you need it really to appeal to as broad a range of people as possible, really, because you need people to turn up. Yeah. You don't want people to turn up and be alienated, so they've got to be accessible for a lot of people. So, by definition, it can't be personalized to yourself. Mm-hmm. Now, you can put your own together, like Daniel says. Now you can start to think about, okay, like, yeah, going to a class and doing a circuit that someone else has put together is good. Mm-hmm. But how much more personalized can this be now that you know not only your own goals, your own limitations, what kit you've got available, potentially what kit you could invest in. We talked about how cost effective some of these bits of kit are, resistance bands, skipping ropes. Now you can start to think about, are they suitable for you? Would they go well in your own circuit? Exactly. And like you say, buddy, it's a really good chance to get something that is personalized to you that really, you wouldn't get from a gym membership. You wouldn't get anything this personalized without paying for one-on-one PT. Yeah. And it's a chance to do it for yourself as well. Which is absolutely amazing. So yeah, you use what we're learning. As especially if, like I say, going back to the gym isn't for you right now. Maybe the gym in general isn't for you at all. We've talked about that before. Maybe you are tired of walking and running and seeing the same parks and the same streets, but maybe you've just had no idea where to start on putting together a circuit for in the house. Now we're past that, we've broken through that barrier. Now we can start to get some ideas down, not just for yourself, but to get some of these circuit cards put up as well. Like, you could even plan the circuit for yourself, do your circuit cards for yourself, and then by the end of the course, you've actually got something that you can use to, like I say, keep you motivated and keep you structured as well. So by all means, that is something to think about. But yeah, by all means, do get in touch if you do have any questions, if there's anything that you're not too sure about, even if it's just, should I put this exercise next to this one, any of that, I'm more than happy to help out with. And of course, we'll have a chance to have a little bit crack next week, see how you guys are getting on with your own designs as well. So we'll leave it there then for today, guys. As always, look after yourselves, look after the people around you, stay safe, stay fit and healthy. Have a good week, guys.
Yeah, so yeah, thanks a lot, guys, and yeah, see you next Tuesday.